So Hare Krishna, everyone. Good evening. Today is the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement. Of course, in most people's conception of, people celebrate people's birthdays, right? It's a very common thing in the world. But generally, you don't hear about people celebrating the day somebody, disappeared or passed away. But within Krishna consciousness, there's the idea that you celebrate both of a great personality. The day they appeared, their birthday, and also the day they disappeared. And they're both beautiful in the sense of like the rising of the sun. It's like a birthday, right? And then the setting of the sun is also very beautiful. Means they left behind their example. So today is that day, and it's a bit of a internal event in many ways, but it happened to fall on a Sunday, which we invite anybody and everybody. So anyways, whoever's here, I think there's less people here because we had Govardhan Puja on Friday, so we had a lot of people. But we have a little bit of a different setup or a different schedule tonight. And instead of somebody getting on this big seat and speaking, the schedule or the idea is that everybody is welcome to share their appreciation or their offering to Srila Prabhupada. So, who would like to start? I guess we have, what we'll do is we'll start with Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples, means persons who are initiated directly by Srila Prabhupada as his formal students. So we'll start with them, which there doesn't seem to be a lot of them here, but there's some. And then, mostly there's grand disciples and others who aren't initiated by Srila Prabhupada. And then after that, we could have grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada say something, and then others. So, it looks like the Prabhupada disciples are pointing to Pavamana Prabhu, another Prabhupada disciple, so I guess he's up. Whether he, So, they should just stay where they are, or there should be a chair that they come up to and sit in? Okay. You want to just put a chair right here? Just right here.
So, Hare Krishna. Welcome back, Ramapati. Hare Krishna. Okay. So, my name is Pavamana, and I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1972. Sorry, Hare Krishna. Welcome. And this day is a very somber occasion. Disappearance. We're not impersonalists. We're not. We have feelings. And Srila Prabhupada was exemplified that on all levels. Srila Prabhupada was concerned, and he loved everyone. And because he loved us, we felt impelled to reciprocate. And so when something good happens, and we're very happy, and something unfortunate happens, and then we're very sad, we lose a loved one or the family member or something, then we naturally feel something. Even in the animal kingdom, the elephants, they also mourn when one of their own passes away. So it's a very somber occasion, the disappearance of our spiritual master. And you can ask any Prabhupada disciple, we never thought that he would pass away. That he had so much energy, had so much spiritual potency that we thought it wasn't possible. And we were just babes in the woods. And I guess we still are. So Srila Prabhupada showed us everything. He showed us how to live, and he also showed us how to pass away. As George Harrison says, all things must pass. So I remember in 1970, I think it was 1973 or 4, it was I believe it was the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And in those days, we used to build an altar out of milk crates. Everything was made out of milk crates in those days. So we made a little makeshift altar. And Srila Prabhupada gave a lecture. And of course, he was very emotional at the time. And he described, how much, he appreciated his spiritual master. And then he said to us, he said, you're all helping me. And he was appreciating the devotees, they're all helping me. And then he began to cry. And I was completely stunned because I thought, here's this person, he's the most humble person that I've ever met in my life. And I just felt like a kludge. Why I don't have any emotion? But the pure devotee is not impersonal. So Srila Prabhupada was very much concerned about every living being on the planet. He did everything he could, not even just for human beings, but why not the animals? They're also part of the citizens of the country. Why are we, giving them so much trouble? So Srila Prabhupada came here in 1965 to give us something that no one else had. We didn't learn it in anything in school, maybe some comparative religion or something like that. But Srila Prabhupada brought the whole Vedic civilization intact by himself. At the age of 70, I just turned 70 back in June. I cannot imagine going to a foreign country and starting a worldwide movement. That's just inconceivable. And his godbrothers thought, well, that's just, Lord Chaitanya predicted every town and village, and that's nice, nice analogy, nice, nice thought. And some of his godbrothers went to London. At least one of his godbrothers went to London and came back completely unsuccessful. And of course, he thought it was impossible to preach to the Westerners. But Srila Prabhupada had another idea. So he spent his whole life, every moment, all the way up to the end, he was still translating in a condition which no mortal could possibly endure. He literally was hardly more than skin and bones. And in that particular situation, all the weight of your body is on the nerves, on the nerve endings. And the Kaviraj, the doctor, said, no one could possibly tolerate this. Anyone else would be screaming in agony. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada was translating Srimad Bhagavatam with someone holding a microphone to his lips because he was too weak to hold it. So Srila Prabhupada came here to give us Krishna. And he showed us by his example how to live. It's just in the Christian theology, the modern day interpretation, that Jesus came to die. I don't know how many Christians are in this audience. I grew up Christian. But does that make any sense? Did Prabhupada come here to die? No, he came here to give us life. That's what he came to give us. Okay? So, by his example and by his very life, he gave us every last breath. And if you can possibly imagine coming from India, where he was very comfortably situated in Vrindavan, holiest land of the whole earth, he came here, and who did he have to work with? Burned out, drugged up hippies. Okay? But none of his godbrothers could even imagine talking to or preaching to these people, but Srila Prabhupada, he took what Krishna sent him. And I also believe that most of the, or not all of the early disciples were planted and who had had some previous connection with Srila Prabhupada. Just like when Krishna comes, the demigods also appear to assist him in his pastimes. So the pure devotee coming to the West, there had to be devotees there already to help Srila Prabhupada. We have many wonderful devotees here from the early days, like Madhusudan, and Kanchan Bala, and Mukunda Maharaj, and so many. But Srila Prabhupada came here without any assistance. In fact, when he came back to India a few years later with some of his disciples, his godbrothers derided him. Oh, these are not really bona fide Brahmins. You know, you're making sannyasis and Brahmins. That's not possible. The Westerners are all mlechas and yavanas. They're low-born, untouchable, And they were envious. They couldn't do it. But Srila Prabhupada did. And so, as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, sometimes, we know what we should do, what he told us to do, and some things we haven't done. And he told us not to do things which we have sometimes fallen down and done. But it's a time to reconsider, it's a time to re-up our vows, to become more serious about Krishna consciousness, because every one of us, in some time or other, no one leaves this world alive. And you can't take anything with you. And Srila Prabhupada showed us how to remember Krishna. His last breath was Hare Krishna. So it's a sobering time. We all have to remember that Krishna consciousness is not armchair speculation. It's not something that we're just a fad or something that, it may be fun to do, but it is a very serious human form of life. We're being given something which is more precious than anything you could buy. You can't just purchase Krishna consciousness. It's not so cheap. And Srila Prabhupada is giving us a diamond, like the Hope Diamond, like better than the Hope Diamond, on a silver platter. I don't know about anyone here. Many of you may have been looking for a guru. I wasn't looking for a guru. But the guru came to me through one of his disciples. So the difference is who is going to take it up. Who's going to accept it? What Srila Prabhupada is giving. It's up to us. You have to, if someone's offering something, you have to go and take it. So everyone here, we have to understand what it is that Srila Prabhupada spent his last breath to do, and that is to help us become Krishna conscious. And that's why he established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in centers all over the world. He established more than 100 centers, published more than 60 full-size 400-page books while we all slept, and corresponded with temples all over the world, managed the worldwide society by himself. Practically 3 or 4 hours at most sleep, and traveled the world 14 times. And if you do a lot of traveling, you know how taxing it is. And when he would get to his new destination, jet lag didn't exist. He kept the same program wherever he went. So we are all indebted, the world is indebted to his divine grace. So thank you very much. I'll go to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, right. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you, Pavamana. That was very moving. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshitarine. Dear followers of Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. As we gather here tonight to glorify Srila Prabhupada, 44 years, this is the 44th anniversary of his disappearance. When he concluded his manifest pastimes on earth, I'd like to contemplate how miraculous his life was and share with you an especially nectarian account of a miracle of his you may not have heard before, at least not in detail. The dictionary defines miracle as follows. 1, an effect or extraordinary event in the physical world that surpasses all known human or natural powers and is ascribed to a supernatural cause. 2, such an effect or event manifesting or considered as a work of God. Certainly, Srila Prabhupada's whole life, and especially his last 12 years with us, in which he courageously left the familiar comforts of India and sallied forth alone to found and nurture his International Society for Krishna Consciousness, must be seen as a series of extraordinary events surpassing all known human or natural powers and manifesting as a work enabled by God. Miraculous. Yet even considering the larger miracle that unarguably constitutes ISKCON itself, and the daily miracles occurring within it and by its influence in the larger world we live in, there are some events in Srila Prabhupada's life that stand out as, one might say, miracles extraordinaire, and inspire extra wonder and enlivenment. Such is what I like to call the Janmashtami Kadamba garland in Jhansi. Here's the story. Give me 1 second to call this story up. The following narration by Bahushra Das Adhikari is from the Srila Prabhupada Memory Series compiled over the decades since Prabhupada's disappearance by Sriman Siddhanta Das Adhikari. These are all on YouTube now, and they're very wonderful personal remembrances of Srila Prabhupada's disciples recounting their personal interactions with him. So this is Bahushra's account of one such instance that he experienced. After Srila Prabhupada's disappearance in 1977, I was invited to assist Satsrup Das Goswami's Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita project by interviewing people in India who had known Srila Prabhupada. By the way, if you're interested in a really in-depth, wonderful account of Srila Prabhupada's life, the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita is it. It took several years for him to compile that, and he had devotees all over the world interviewing people like Bahusha with going to India, and also Srila Prabhupada's disciples. One of such people that I interviewed, says Bahusha, was Acharya Prabhakar Mishra. Now, just to check, who knows who that is? Does anyone recognize that name? Yes, his very first disciple. This is Srila Prabhupada's very first disciple in India. He made in India. Acharya Prabhakar Mishra, Prabhupada's first disciple. Acharya Prabhakar was clean-cut and articulate. This is when he met him in 1977, or after 1977. His demeanor impressed me. He held an MA and a PhD and was a very cultured Sanskrit scholar and teacher. In Jhansi, which is 220 miles south of Delhi and 210 miles west of Allahabad, Srila Prabhupada had told Acharya Prabhakar, "I met you because I saw you in a dream, and I knew that I was supposed to come here." Come here means to Jhansi. There's a whole account of this Jhansi adventure, which I won't get into, but this was a place that was loaned to Srila Prabhupada, and he started the League of Devotees there, and he thought his whole movement would be centered there. But it didn't work out by Krishna's arrangement, and so he had to come to America and do what he did. He held a PhD. In Jhansi, Srila Prabhupada had told Acharya Prabhakar. Now the year is, we're talking about 1952 here, where Prabhupada first went to Jhansi, and then he was there for over a year, and we'll see what happened here. Prabhupada said he would do, Prabhupada and Acharya Prabhakar would do bhajans together. They'd hold Rath Yatra festivals and hold programs in villages in the area. Acharya Prabhakar said that on Sri Krishna Janmashtami in 1954, so this is over a year later, he had to go to Delhi. When he returned to Jhansi, he took a little rest, woke up at 1 a.m. in the morning, and heard Srila Prabhupada ecstatically playing mridanga in the temple room, which was on the second floor of this building. Prabhupada was chanting in total bliss. Acharya Prabhakar went upstairs and saw Srila Prabhupada playing mridanga and dancing around the temple room performing kirtan. Prabhupada was wearing a kadamba flower garland that went all the way down to his feet. By the way, I'm going to take my opportunity in case I forget. We want to really thank Guru Krishna Prabhu and his wife for growing this wonderful garland. I forget what the name of the flower, but it's very fragrant and wonderful. What is it? Plumeria garland. He presented it we had a ceremony around 12 where we had the Pushpanjali. We're going to have another Pushpanjali. But he brought it here. It's a wonderful service they do whenever they are able to. So kadamba flowers are very rare in Jhansi. And when they are available, they're usually the size of golf balls. But the ones Prabhupada was wearing were big, the size of tennis balls. And Acharya Prabhakar said that the atmosphere right down to the atoms in the room was not material, it was spiritual. The place was surcharged with the fragrance of the heavenly planets. Acharya Prabhakar asked Srila Prabhupada, "Where did this garland come from? It is not available from the market." But Srila Prabhupada would not answer. His Divine Grace just kept on performing kirtan, dancing around the room and chanting in ecstasy. The next morning, Acharya Prabhakar asked Prabhupada, "Where did you get the garland? Why did it have such a rich fragrance? And why were you feeling so blissful?" Prabhupada told him, "I was chanting to Krishna and feeling some love for him, and he appeared before me and gave me this garland. I went to touch his lotus feet, but he disappeared. Because of that, I was dancing around the temple room." Now, how many of you have heard this in detail before? Some are just a smattering, right? I never read the details of this pastime. It just sent me over the moon. Srila Prabhupada was crying when he told him this. Acharya Prabhakar was very believable, and I felt that what he told me was true. He also said that sometimes Srila Prabhupada's mood was to perform kirtan intensely. He would chant on and on and on, sometimes for 3 days straight. Straight. We've all heard that sometimes near the end of his manifest Leela, Srila Prabhupada wouldn't eat for long periods. We heard some of that. But remarkably, in Jhansi, he sometimes did kirtan for days without eating or sleeping. And the result of one of those kirtans was that Krishna appeared to him and gave him a supernatural Kadamba garland. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And that's my remembrance today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Pacharne Nivashesha Shunyavadi Pashtatya Deshatarne. First, I just wanted to say a few words about one dear member of our community. I wanted to say a few words about one very dear member of our community, Rajendra Nandana Prabhu, who for so many years had actually been the MC for this very event for Srila Prabhupada. He is so dedicated to Srila Prabhupada and to our community. Now, he presently is in a situation where he's soon to pass away due to the impact of some cancer. But we were able to visit with him, and he's just an amazing soul. You know, he's very fixed. His whole mind and heart is fixed on Srila Prabhupada, like his whole life has been. And I just thought that I would mention him and his dear wife. I mean, every year him and his wife would call around and help organize, Srila Prabhupada's Remembrance Festival, and then he would go around to everybody with the mic and engage everyone's participation. And that's just one service, he would do, or, he's done so many times. He's preached with the devotees, he's encouraged devotees, he's counseled, he's given so many sweet classes, here in New Govardhan. And he was also the temple president here for some time. So Rajendra Nandan is just a wonderful, dear, and loving soul, our senior godbrother. So I ask that everyone here, say a kind prayer to our dear Srila Prabhupada and Shri Radha Giridhari on his behalf. And, also in gratitude, thanking him for all his wonderful service and being such a wonderful transcendental ISKCON, family member. And to wish him well in his departure from this world. But it's amazing, I was reflecting myself what Srila Prabhupada has given us, because I also had to go through an experience where our youngest daughter, Shamali Dasi, had to leave this world. And because of Srila Prabhupada's mercy, because of Srila Prabhupada's message, that she was also fixed at the time of leaving this world, fixed in her Krishna consciousness, fixed, due to the kindness of the devotees, her spiritual master, Indradutta Swami, and most certainly Srila Prabhupada, because he set the stage where for them, for Rajendra Nandana and so many other devotees, and for all of us, to be able to leave this world by being Krishna conscious. And, we have time to prepare for that, so that when we're ready to leave this world, we can meditate on our service to Krishna, to Srila Prabhupada, to the devotees, and leave in the right frame of mind to go back to Godhead. But I wanted to just say a few words here. I have some notes. There's a beautiful poem written by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and I was going to relate that to our dear Srila Prabhupada. That goes like this: He reasons ill who say that Vaishnavas die, when thou art living, still and sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and living try to spread the holy name around. So Srila Prabhupada is very much alive and with us. I mean, we're sitting here because of the life he gave us, this temple, the community of devotees, the beautiful deities, Shri Radha Giridhari, Gaurnitai, Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra. Everything we have here is based on that, Prabhupada spreading the holy name around, that Prabhupada's given us life, and that life continues. And like Dravida Prabhu said, there's so much amazing association you can still get with Srila Prabhupada. One thing, just coming here to the temple and hearing Prabhupada's message. I've been a devotee not as long as, Pavamana Prabhu and Dravida Prabhu and Bhadrinarayan Swami and so many others, but I can tell you that, from the day I joined in 1975 to what I'm experiencing now, this is Prabhupada's program. This is Prabhupada's temple. This is Prabhupada's ISKCON, and it's just a shelter for us and for everyone. And the programs that go on, Dravida Prabhu gives Bhagavad Gita class during the week, and there's a beautiful Manga Artik and Srimad Bhagavatam class. There's the Sunday festival like we're having here. This is all what Srila Prabhupada. And the books, of course. I was getting to the books. Srila Prabhupada's books are his divine association. He's living in his books. It's transcendental, the message that you get from Prabhupada's books. And you also have the Prabhupada memories, like Dravida Prabhu mentioned, where devotees recall their interactions with Srila Prabhupada. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. The Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. There's also Srila Prabhupada's lectures, his morning walks, his conversations. I know myself, every day I try to listen to one or two of these. And it's like you're right there with Srila Prabhupada and the devotees. And it's so sweet. So all this is here. It's with us now. It's not that Srila Prabhupada's gone. Prabhupada's presence is there in his books, in his talks, in association of his followers. It's really a special thing. And I wanted to share this one time I was, as a new devotee, I was Bhakti Malcolm, and I was we had the second day after I joined, they sent me out on traveling Sankirtan. So I was out distributing books, and I was with Srila Prabhu. Some of you may know the name, but he's been around for many years and just a wonderful devotee. We were doing traveling Sankirtan in San Antonio, and we headed off to L.A. because Srila Prabhupada was coming to L.A. And from L.A. he was going to go up to San Francisco for the Rath Yatra Festival in Golden Gate Park. But I remember going along and getting the blessing to be able to be with the devotees and to see Srila Prabhupada and to hear from him. But I remember when we went to San Francisco, there was a time when, as the bhaktas, devotees, we were all helping getting ready for Rath Yatra, and Jayananda was there. It was very ecstatic, and Srila Prabhupada was giving talks every day in what was going to be the new Berkeley Temple. We were residing in this huge garage. All the devotees were camped there, Radha Damodar parties, and all the devotees from around the country. But I remember one evening, Bahalashva Prabhu, who was temple president there, asked some devotees to go hear Srila Prabhupada give a talk at a life members home, a member of the community. So we went there, me and about 3 or 4 other brahmacharis, and we sat down, and Srila Prabhupada gave the talk in Hindi. But the devotees had already taught me that if you hear from Srila Prabhupada, even though you may not fully understand him, because I remember when I first started listening to Srila Prabhupada talks, because of his accent, and I wasn't used to it, I couldn't understand it, but I had full faith that if I listen to Srila Prabhupada, eventually I'll understand and I'll become purified. I'll become blessed by Srila Prabhupada's words. But I remember sitting there, and it was really sweet. Prabhupada was speaking in Hindi, so I couldn't understand, but we were all sitting very attentively. And at one point, Balalashva had told us ahead of time, well, we're going to signal you to leave because we need you to do something to get ready for Rath Yatra. So he signaled us, and we started offering obeisance, and Srila Prabhupada said, where are they going? And then Balalashva explained, said, no, they stay. So I got from that a message from Srila Prabhupada that he's very pleased if we listen to him attentively and try to take this message of Krishna consciousness, even in that situation where I couldn't understand fully. So I just wanted to share that, Srila Prabhupada does live on. He's here with us, like Dravida Prabhu said in his books and in so many other ways. And I think our best service to Srila Prabhupada is to embrace his message, embrace, and also share this message of Krishna consciousness with others, and enable ourselves to be successful in this life, in going back to Godhead and helping each other, all of us, go back to Godhead. So I just wanted to thank Srila Prabhupada so much for what he's given us, given me the association of all of you, and be able to serve in his mission, his society, and and to be able to glorify him here tonight with these words. So thank you all very much, and Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oh, my name is Vijaya Das. I'm not a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I just missed the boat. I joined in 1978, 9 months after Prabhupada departed. But he made me a devotee. I found a Bhagavad Gita in a library in Key West, Florida, and it was astounding. I couldn't put it down. It wasn't the unabridged that we have now. It was the abridged. Didn't have all the purports. Didn't have the Sanskrit. But I couldn't put it down. I read it in like 3 days, and I was convinced. Prabhupada's just such a powerful preacher. I was convinced Krishna's God. That's it. So I went to the Miami temple, and that was it. So yeah, Prabhupada is such a pure devotee that he convinced so many thousands and thousands of people to surrender to Krishna. Before Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita came, there was so many Bhagavad Gitas, but nobody became a devotee of Krishna. But Prabhupada came, so many people became devotees of Krishna. And therefore his name is Bhakti Vedanta. Bhakti, he has so much devotion and so much knowledge. And therefore he captured the hearts of so many people. I'll tell you one of my favorite stories of Srila Prabhupada. Some of you have heard, brahmacharis here have heard this, but it's sweet. Prabhupada, I think it was 1970, he went back to India from America. And he wanted to start preaching in India, opening temples in India. He had already done it in America. So he wanted to spread Krishna consciousness in India. Although already people were Krishna conscious, but not to the extent that Krishna would appreciate. Prabhupada was helping people become really Krishna conscious. So he wanted devotees from around America, to go to India to help. He wanted one devotee from each temple to go to India to help the preaching. So one of those devotees was Giriraj Swami. And he was the son of a very wealthy man. And his father and mother were a little upset that he had become a Hare Krishna. And then he went to India, so that was really too much. So they decided to go to India to try to get him to go back to America. So he got the information, and flight information, picked him up, and immediately the father's trying to convince him to go back to America. He said, no, I'd prefer to stay here. I want to stay here. So he thought, well, maybe I can get the sympathy of his guru. So he asked him if he could make an arrangement to meet with Prabhupada. I said, yeah. So the mother and father were there, and Giriraj and Prabhupada and servant. And he said to Prabhupada that this disciple of yours, Giriraj, he's my son, and we both, my wife and myself, we have great affection for him, and we would like him to go back to America. Can you send him back? And Prabhupada asked Giriraj, do you want to go back to America? No, Prabhupada, I want to stay here with you. So Prabhupada said to his parents, you don't want me to force him, do you? And they said no. So Prabhupada said, well, take him to the foothills, the Himalayas there. Took him to Nepal, right? So for a week, I think about a week, Giriraj spent some time with them. And they appreciated that. They rented some flat there. And they went back to Bombay, and Giriraj Brahmachari at the time wanted them to get some more association with Prabhupada, because just a moment's association with Prabhupada can do amazing things. So he arranged a meeting with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada didn't preach to them. He just, made friends with them, joking differences between India and America, and light talk. So when they left, they were very happy. And after they left, the servant said to Prabhupada, "Prabhupada, you amaze me. Everybody loves you so much." And Prabhupada said, "That's because I love everyone so much." So this is Prabhupada. And this is why this movement spread all over the world, because Prabhupada had so much love for everyone. He was in a room in Hawaii, and one servant was cleaning the room, and he saw one unusual looking insect on the table he had never seen before. So he said, "Prabhupada, look at this insect. I'd never seen such an unusual looking insect." So Prabhupada came over and he's looking at it, and he's also surprised. Then Prabhupada said, "Well, chant to the poor thing." So the devotee started chanting to it, because he could see it's spirit soul. He saw all living entities as spirit souls. It's like in Dallas, there was some storm, and a tree had fallen over, and so there was some danger it could fall on the building, so the devotees cut it. And then Prabhupada visited, and he saw that the tree was cut. And he could see that it would have been okay if it had not been cut. So he was upset that they had cut a tree. Just an amazing amount of compassion that Srila Prabhupada had. And as said earlier, he's still alive. He's still alive in his books. And to this day now, thousands of people are reading Prabhupada's books, and they're getting purified. I'll tell you one story. My main service is book distribution, so I have some stories about Prabhupada's books you might appreciate. Right here in San Diego, I was distributing at Balboa Park, where Prabhupada placed his lotus feet and spoke. So I was at a table, and these three ladies came to the table, and they were all crying. And I asked them, "Why are you all crying?" They said, "Well, this violin player, he's so good. He put us in tears." Just about 12 yards away, he was playing a violin. So then I showed them the Bhagavad Gita, the pictures in the Bhagavad Gita. And they said, the violin player, he was good. But this Bhagavad Gita, this is a cherry on top of the cake. So they all took Bhagavad Gitas, gave $50. Two of them lived in Los Angeles, one lived in San Diego. So the one lived in San Diego, I gave the invitation to our Krishna Lounge. For those of you who don't know, every Thursday night we have a program here for newcomers, and many nice people come. So I gave her that book on Monday. On Wednesday, myself and Balaram Prabhu were talking in the lobby. This is the first time me and him had ever talked in the lobby before class, since I've been here a year and a half. So she comes in, she says, "You gave a book to me. You gave me a Bhagavad Gita 2 days ago." And I'm amazed. She just loved it. And she was just pouring out her heart for 10 minutes. She's crying, just expressing her gratitude. And Balaram and myself were like amazed. So I said, well, you know, right now we're going to have a Srimad Bhagavatam class. You can go in and sit on that, in that class and hear some of the philosophy. So she said, okay. And the person giving that class was none other than Rajendra Nandana. The person who we had just spoke about, who's leaving his body soon. By the way, I was thinking it would be nice if all of us could chant the Hare Krishna mantra for Rajendra Nandana Prabhu. Let's do that. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He's a very good preacher. Nice kirtan leader. We're going to miss him here. Just a really sweet devotee. We've been missing him already. So he gave a nice class and she appreciated it. And she was talking to all the devotees here, and someone gave her beads and taught her how to chant, and she's just loving everything. So I was thinking, this person, she's a devotee. Like when I joined, I came to the temple, I never left. That was it. So she was like this. But I had to find out a little bit more about her before I invite her to another temple. There's no facility here for women to live because it's such small facility here. So I had to find out a little bit more about her before I took that move. Turns out she's a chemical engineer, a concert pianist, and had managed businesses. So a very qualified lady. So I went to speak to Kalakanta. I was thinking that'd be the best thing because he has these semesters where people can go and they could learn about Krishna for 3 months. So I called him up and he said, well, we only allow 12 people for each semester and we have 11 places taken. There's 1 spot open. So, Krishna's just arranging this, like it's just amazing. So he's in Gainesville. Yeah, he's in Gainesville. Krishna House, yes. So I went and I told her, you know, I have a friend who has this 3-month semester where people can go and they could learn about Krishna. And he only allows 12 people each semester, 3 months. There's 1 spot open, so if you want, you could go home and register and he might accept you. She said, no, really? And she took off. She went home and she registered, accepted. She's there right now, and she's already giving Srimad Bhagavatam classes. She's been in the movement for 2 months. You know, Kalakanta's in love with her. Everybody loves her there. She's just like, you know, just taken up from her past life. So there's so many people like that Prabhupada is capturing through his books. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So yeah, it looks like there's the Prabhupada disciples, and now we're going to the grand disciples. So who would like to? Well, I speak all the time, but so Subhadra, okay, Subhadra, and then you, both.
Hare Krishna. I just missed the boat too. I just came a few months before Prabhupada left when they first started building this temple. I lived in PB. I was a teenager, so I just came down because I found a book in my drawer one day, in the kitchen drawer, that my mother had donated a quarter for at the Vons up the street. And I was Catholic. I was raised Catholic, so I was a little afraid to read. When I opened it, I wouldn't read any chapter that had the name Krishna in the title. But then I started reading it, and my mind was blown. And I remember, like, my mind, hearing my mind say, this is real religion, because it just made so much more sense. And on that note, I just wanted to say a couple of things. It was The Perfection of Yoga. It was just really wonderful. And I remember, because I was a teenager, reading the rules and regulations and thinking, oh my God, I haven't even gotten started yet. But anyway, the real reason I came up here was to encourage everybody that feels like they missed the boat because, from Prabhupada being here, that there are several ways that devotees have mentioned that you can get to know him. And one way is, like Jamuna said, and I think someone else said, that there are Prabhupada memories on YouTube. My best friend, Jamuna's wife, watches them every night, and she calls them bedtime stories. So she just listens over and over and goes through the whole thing and then starts over and watches them all again. And she's always telling me stories. She's ever enlivened by that. And the other thing I wanted to mention was there are a couple of fun ways to read Prabhupada's books. There's a program called CHAD, and that stands for Chapter a Day. And that's a program to read a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita every day, either the Sanskrit or the English or both. But you can just read it out loud, just the verses. Of course, you can read the whole thing, but it's a nice way to break it up. And I found it's a nice flow like that. It's very amazing. And every chapter that I've read for years and years, you kind of feel like you were asleep the last time you read it. Like, why does this all sound brand new? And another neat thing about it that happens to me is I think, oh, this is my favorite chapter. This is the best. And then I read the next one. I go, no, no. And like I change my mind every time I go through the Bhagavad Gita, which is my favorite chapter, especially if you read the purports. Then you're like hooked. And then the other program there is, it's called Be a Sage, page by page. And there's an app you can get. And it tells you if you want to read which of Prabhupada's books in how much time. Like if you want to read the Bhagavad Gita in a month, I forget how many pages, sorry, but the whole thing. Or if you want to read it in 6 months, how many pages you read a day to read it in 6 months or a year. And like, for instance, the Srimad Bhagavatam is a very long book. It's 12 cantos long. And if you want to read that in a year, you can read 41 pages a day. I think it's 41. Anyway, so I just wanted to encourage everybody that that's the best way to get to know Srila Prabhupada is through his books. And it's a magical journey, and you won't regret it. And if, like the app shows, I think you could go to a website too if you can't get apps. But just even one paragraph a day will change your life, I guarantee. Thank you.
Introduce myself. I'm Krishna Kata Das. Also, like Vijay, 1978, I was just finishing my second year in college, and as most people in the 70s, I was kind of a late hippie. So I was roommating with several in one big house, and I got home from school one day, and there was all of these beautiful pictures of Krishna on the wall in the hallway. And I didn't know who this personality was at the time. I was just staring at very colorful and brilliant pictures of Krishna playing a flute. So one of the roommates was a woman that had gotten a scholarship in music, and she was a flute player. So I went right to her, and I said, "Did you put these beautiful pictures in the hallway?" She goes, "Yes, that's Krishna." And I was so astonished. Who is Krishna? And that was it. She said, "He's the supreme flute player." That's all she knew of him. At the time, I was like, okay. And so anyway, my second year of college, I was in this delusion of I wasn't happy. I didn't know where I was going. I'd already changed my major twice. So I had this wild and crazy idea that I was going to be happy on the big island of Hawaii. I grew up a surfer, and I just thought, oh, that's where I'll go, and I'll be happy. And so after 3 months of walking around the island, I ran out of food and money, so I had my return ticket. So I'm in the Hilo airport, and many devotees will understand that sometimes the airport can be the most sacred ground. And so Madhuha Das came up to me in a dhoti and kurta. He was distributing books. And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm returning to Los Angeles. I've ran out of food and money." And he said, "Well, you should read this book, and I'll be back." And I had 3 hours waiting for my plane, so it was a nectar of instruction. I read the entire book right there in the airport. And then I was so curious, I was so enthralled, like the Mataji explained, that she went from minuscule understanding of God and not knowing his name to suddenly being introduced to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna through the nectar of instruction. And Madhuha returned, and he said, "So you should come with us. Just turn your ticket in, take the cash, and go back to our temple on the north shore of the Big Island." And I did, and I was very happy that I did, because that's where I met Gaur Sundar. Talk about one of the early disciples of Prabhupada. If you look at old, on YouTube, black and white video, there's a lot of famous video recordings of Gaur Sundar and Govinda Dasi. They're chanting japa and walking with Prabhupada. That's Gaur Sundar. So I was then introduced to Gandharbik and Giri Bharadari, the deities that were installed there. And so many amazing devotees on a farm that had a cow, who we called Mama, and she gave so much milk that we were giving away wheels of cheese and yogurt and butter to all the neighboring farms around, because she was producing 2 5-gallon metal jugs of milk every day, one in the morning and one at night. And they engaged me in all the services there. And so without telling you how somehow I had to leave, it had to do with an infection in my leg. So Gaur Sundar bought me a ticket. I went back to Los Angeles, and that's where I joined the temple in New Dwarka. And under the tutelage of Vatsal and Charu, Madhuha, Rameshwar, so many great disciples of Prabhupada, I was fortunate to be dunked deep into the ocean of mercy that Prabhupada gave us in the form of his Transcendental Festival program. I traveled all over the United States for my whole tenure as brahmachari for 6 years, going from college to college in the festival program, where we put on an amazing giant pandal tents. I don't know if you've seen these. They're flat-topped tents with big bamboo pillars. And so we would erect all of these pandals in large areas of these campuses and cook prasadam for 500 people. And then, offered to Krishna. And then it was prasadam and big book distribution and big kirtan. And what we did in one part of these pandal tents was these amazing displays of Krishna art, like you see here in the temple. And it was just astonishing to all these university students, because we went to top universities. We went to all of these universities all over the United States for 6 years. So that was very merciful. And as most devotees have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada, I'd like to share one that keeps coming up for me. And it's every time I see Prabhupada's murti, just like this one. And they're in every temple that Prabhupada establishes. And he's non-different from his murti, from his books, from his lectures, his morning walks. He's he's the same. So if you want a relationship with Prabhupada, I'll tell you one way that I continued with a relationship. As most devotees in the early 80s, you got to go to India. So my traveling devotee partner was Jagadishwar Das. And so we were there 6 weeks. And after visiting the holy dham of Mayapur and Navadvip, we were now in Vrindavan. And I became sick with dysentery. So for 3 days, I was just unable to move on a thin bamboo platform on top of concrete. So it was kind of austere. But nevertheless, I was chanting, and I was able to at least do that, is get my 16 rounds done. But I couldn't go to any of the programs. I was very sick. I was kind of hunched over. It was a really difficult stomach issue. So anyway, after the third day, Jagadishwar came and he said, "Stop this nonsense. You're going to get up and you're going to help. There's something very important. There's some mercy for you to perform, and you've got to come help us." And I'm like, "What? What is it?" So he just pulls me off the bamboo mat, and he just kind of semi-drags me into this giant courtyard at the Vrindavan temple, Krishna Balaram temple. And at the time, there was no murti. There is now. And there was this huge crate, huge wooden crate. And after they got it open, covered in like double or triple the size of Prabhupada Murti here, is a full bronze Murti of Srila Prabhupada. And it was so heavy that it took like 12 devotees around, and no one could see because it was still covered. But when we finally got it out of the crate and walked it over to the platform that was built, they took the covering off, and I was holding Prabhupada's feet. I didn't know what section where I was. I just knew it was Prabhupada's Murti, and it was very heavy. And there I was holding on to his lotus feet. So this is the mercy that keeps coming up for me. And I get choked up just thinking about it. Now I'm telling it for the first time to devotees. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right, so now, thank you very much. Now we could have Vrinda and Mukunda. They have a poem they've wrote.
Hare Krishna, Danvat Pranam. We have a poem for Srila Prabhupada. So, Srila Prabhupada, the Savior of the world, you gave us the holy names, which is the best gift. You taught us how to dance, and you made our spirits lift. You gave us sandesh kachoris, and we got a higher taste. You opened our eyes with a Krishna conscious sight. Srila Prabhupada, the Savior of our lives. Srila Prabhupada, the Savior of the world. By reading your books, we are safe from Maya. We were in sorrows with an uncontrolled mind. But your inconceivable mercy led us to the right path. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the core of our heart for all the things you have done. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Guru Padra, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
All right, Dunvari.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. Jai Srila Prabhupada. I'm not qualified to speak or don't have any qualities, but I'm going to try to speak something that hope it makes sense. So, according to my experience and realization, that nobody is like Srila Prabhupada. Nobody has ever, so many people like has written Gita's, Bhagavatam and other commentary on scriptures, including in India, and so many gurus were there, and so many temples even in India, including or and all over the world. I've been there, but I've never ever seen anyone giving the process of how to practically do bhakti and follow the scriptures. Nobody has ever given. Nobody had this kind of classes, Bhagavatam class or Gita classes, temples, service, deities, prasad, all these things in books, innumerable things that Prabhupada did, Srila Prabhupada did in one-handed by himself, and he all over the world. So I'm very thankful that thankful to Srila Prabhupada for coming here in the Western countries, because in India when I was there, I never heard, or I was not, I wasn't aware of anything. So after coming here, recently I'm getting that taste by everyone's devotee's mercy, and so thankful to Srila Prabhupada. I'm very thankful to Srila Prabhupada for coming here and his disciple and grand disciple for carrying and executing his legacy and serving all of us. I'm very thankful. Thank you very much, and all of everyone. Hare Krishna. Take care.
Would you like to say something? Would you like to say something? Yes. Yes.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I don't know when to start, where to start. It all happened when I was going to night college in Los Angeles. Yeah, let me remember. 1967, I think.
So this is the first time she heard about Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was first time the students asked me, do you know there was a Swami came from India, and he's giving speeches. I said, no, I didn't know that. Because I did not know. Because he's not from South, he's from Bengal. Normally, we don't know that much. So, but in 68, we used to live in San Jose,
Cooper, San Jose.
and then every weekend we go with family. We go to the campus where in weekends the devotees they chant there in the campus. So one weekend we went there with the family, and Mukunda Maharaj and Janaki and Brahmananda Swami. That time they are all devotees, brahmacharis. I think Malati Janaki, I think Janaki and Mukunda, maybe they are married, I didn't know that, but they were playing very, what do you call that? So fast, so vigorously. And I never seen that. And Matangi, my daughter, who was 4-year-old that time, she liked it, and my husband, of course, he liked it. They jump with them.
So I'll add one thing there. So coming from a South Indian background, that's very foreign to us generally. We're very sedate. We sit nicely during bhajan. Nobody sits around and dances and jumps around like that, except for my father. So, and many of you know that that's what he would do. He would, always be dancing. So, of course, when he heard the mridanga and he saw the devotees, he was excited. His Ishta Daivam has always been Sri Hari. So when they were chanting Hare Krishna and they're jumping around, he was like, "Oh my God, where have you been all my life?" Wait, let me add. And my mother, on the other hand, was saying, "Oh my God, who are these people?" Okay.
Because that time we never seen a foreign white skin people to do any chanting or anything, jumping. Yeah. So it was all new for me, very new. And I was a little bit not ashamed. What do you call? Why these people are jumping like this? This is not the way I do. And but my children, they are jumping, and my husband is enjoying so much. And I am the only one standing there and looking them. Then in 1968, we went to Berkeley. No, in San Francisco, I think. They have a Panchatattva?
Yeah, Panchatattva picture, probably. Yeah, picture.
In a picture, photograph, they told me, you go to San Francisco, if you have a chance and you see the deities there. Deities mean just Panchatattva.
Picture, it was just a
picture.
Yeah.
So we went there, and my husband liked it very much, and the devotees, I think his name is, the president name was Sri Ram or something. That he asked me, "Mataji, can you make some puris and halwa for the deities?" And I said, "I live in San Jose, I don't come often here, but maybe some other time I will make," I told them. In 1970, that time Prabhupada came here?
No, 72, was that the first time?
Whenever he came first time, whole family went there. There is a apartment here next to...
It was the first temple.
Where is that? Yeah. Prabhupada stayed there, And they asked us to come and talk to Prabhupada. So my family and my husband, we went there and we talked to them, talked to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada asked me, how long you have been here? Well, 6 years. I did not like this place. And wherever I go to the store, there is so much meat hanging there. And there is no temples, nothing. Everywhere eating meat and everything. I want to go back, Swami. But you are here, your husband is working here. You have to stay here. No, I'm not happy. I want to go home, back to my family. But he said, okay, don't worry, what you do is, this is the thing. You make an altar and put your deities, whatever your favorite deities are. So every morning with the whole family, not only you, your husband, your children, everybody has to do the bhajan. The bhajan is strange for me. I never do. I sit and chant. But children and my husband, they are very happy. So we make a bedroom into a temple. Then every morning we chant and we invite devotees once in a while to give a lecture and something, and I cook. I offered and I give prasadam to everybody. And that time I was working and give prasadam to my colleagues too. So it's going on all these years, since 1966, when I heard Prabhupada in the newspaper. Since that time, so I'm here now.
So I'll just add a few things that she didn't say. So when she told me this story, okay, quite a while ago, Thursday, when they asked her to cook prasadam and stuff, she thought, I'm not going to cook. These guys are all on drugs. Okay, so that was one thing. She was really afraid that they were all, because like I said, and this kind of goes back to a little bit about Srila Prabhupada. So my mother was raised, in a very orthodox family, very, very, sedate, kind of very well-respected, traditional sort of thing. Srila Prabhupada also comes from a very cultured family. That's the word I'm looking for, cultured family. So in the cultured family, there's certain etiquettes. We know that by now, Maryada, that Srila Prabhupada explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? We understand that. But this is the kind of respect, honor, culture that Srila Prabhupada is used to, right? And you can imagine him coming to this country. First of all, he was not mixing with the elite, the aristocrats, the rich people. He was mixing with the down, the grassroots, right? Way down to, the common man in whatever form he was, whatever mood, whatever status of life he is. And, and sometimes not even, as we would say, in a human level, right? In very, very base conditions. And this gentleman came from that kind of a cultured upbringing and society and came down to our level in order to give us this love for Krishna. And we in the Sunday school, adding a little there, Sunday school, we were showing them the video of Srila Prabhupada, and we were discussing about him. And the first question I asked was, how many of you understood what he said? Now, he has a very strong Bengali accent, okay? And I know when I go to India and speak English, they don't understand my English. So you can imagine when Prabhupada comes here, who understands his English? His accent was so strong, right? Yet he was able to transform so many hearts. And it was not just the words he was speaking, but it was how he was behaving, how he exemplified the mood of a pure devotee. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about Srila Prabhupada. This really, really has, touched my heart. The other incident, as my mother told about the incident with herself, to her that changed her life. It also changed our lives, by the way, because then we were, every morning had arati, every morning we have kirtan, reading Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita and going to school. So it began our spiritual life. So it obviously started from Srila Prabhupada giving those instructions. The other incident that happened was with my father. And I think there is in the tapes, there is a tape of Srila Prabhupada discussing with my father. And Srila Prabhupada, my father was always very, they had very lively discussions. So, and for my father, now he came to this country obviously following the dollar and all this kind of stuff, right? He came here and he was not happy. He knew something was missing. He went through transcendental meditation. He went through SRF. He went through, I don't know what else, because I remember those because I was there. So he went through all these things. And the thing that always bothered him was that a lot of things were modified and changed. For whatever reason, I can't comment why, but they were changed. It was different. It wasn't exactly how it was supposed to be. And my dad was always very, yes, and strict to Sastra. And so Srila Prabhupada, he did not, there was no compromise, right? There's no changing. And so one of the things that Srila Prabhupada said to my father was that everybody in the Kali Yuga is a Shudra. Now, you understand, my father was formed in a Brahminical family. He thought he was very orthodox. When somebody says you're a Sudra, that's like, very an insult. And my father was very offended. And there was a whole discussion, and my Srila Prabhupada said, you're working for somebody, that's a Sudra. And so there was this big back and forth discussion. And like I said, it's recorded so you can find it. But the end result was, my father said, okay, and there was discussions, sastric discussions back and forth, and my father was convinced. And so he, surrendered to Srila Prabhupada, and that's why you see us here today. And so my father asked, so should I quit my job and join the temple? Because that's what, and my mom said to me, she was afraid that he would do that, oh my God. And 5 children, and coming and joining the temple, that's scary. And so, then Srila Prabhupada said, no, I don't want you to, join the temple. But what you do is as the instruction was given to my mom about, having the altar and raising your kids in Krishna consciousnness, he also told him that you should, your wife should, cook for the deities, offer it. And we have a picture at the home. We don't have deities, so we offer it to Radha Giridhari and take it to your office to your people and your co-workers and serve them prasadam and speak about Krishna. So that's what my father did, and that's what my mother did when she was also working, talk about Krishna whenever they had a chance and shared prasadam. So that is what I would like to share. And actually, it was actually in Subbalakshmi Auntie's house that Srila Prabhupada stayed. So, Auntie, raise your hand because Srila Prabhupada was in your house. So they got the mercy. Srila Prabhupada stayed in their house.
Does she still have the same house?
No, she didn't have the same house. We actually had the bed. Our bed went over to their house because they didn't have a bed. So our bed went over there. We had that bed for many, many years, but then that also left. But we kept holding on to that. And that's what I want to thank for myself that because Srila Prabhupada established this temple here, it has been my sanctuary, my home base. Radha Giridhari have been my protectors through all the things that we have been through in life. And many of you know that we've had, had health crises in our household and, different kinds of things like that, traumas. But Radha Giridhari have been our sanctuary. So for that, we are very grateful to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Looks like we're kind of running out of time, but there seems like there'll be one more here, and then after that we'll have Puspanjali offering flowers to Srila Prabhupada, and then followed by they cook the dinner. So.
Hare Krishna. My name is Adriana. And I definitely don't feel qualified to be sitting up here, but I gave it some thought after Govardhan Prabhu asked me earlier if I was making an offering. And I kind of was like, oh no, all these things came up, like, oh no, who am I to be up there and talking about this? But I'm like, everybody has the capacity to reveal the gratefulness that they have, because I think each and every one of us does have that level of gratefulness to Srila Prabhupada and his mission. And so I wrote a little bit of something down, kind of quickly, so it's not perfect, but at times these feelings of separation from the divine couple can be so overwhelmingly unbearable. It is an uncomfortable position, to say the least, but I often stop and think of how lost I would feel not knowing what it is that my real self was longing for. Srila Prabhupada, I thank you for those 16 words that you so mercifully shared with the world. Your devotion knows no bounds. You have changed so many lives and continue to do so long past your physical time here on this planet. Srila Prabhupada, I thank you for creating a space of transcendental bliss where all are welcome. A spiritual abode with a spiritual family is what I find here today, under the protection of Radha Giridhari, and anywhere else I roam in which your hand or your disciple's hand has touched. And for that, I am so beyond grateful for and forever indebted unto you. Hare Krishna.